Hello everybody. I am going to record a video for you guys showing you how to convert things to black and white, since unfortunately we got into way too many discussions today in class and I wasn't able to actually show you. And then someone brought it to my attention because I'm so dingy, I totally forgot that in your homework it actually specifically states that you're supposed to turn your photojournalism photographs into black and white. And a couple of students had said, hey, I want to know how to turn it into black and white. And I said, I want to show you how to turn it into black and white. And then I didn't get a chance to do it. So this might actually be a little bit better because you'll have a video and you can play along at home and stop and rewind and pause and slow down until you get how to do it. This is by no means the cut and dry version of how to do it, and everyone has their own opinion on what a black and white photo should look like, but this is my particular opinion, and since I am going to be grading your homework, and maybe you might want to make it look like I want it to look like. But I have a feeling that once you see the difference, you'll hopefully agree with me that it does look a little bit better if you do just a little bit tweaking to it. I'm going to show you two different ways to do it. And like I said, there's many different ways, but these are like the easiest ways that I know how to do it. So without further ado, let's see how to do black and white. So I have a photo here that was from a senior session that I did a couple weeks ago down in the loop, and I just arbitrarily grabbed a photo, doesn't matter. So I have the color version, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control and J, and you'll see that it actually copies that layer, so that we will be able to see the differences between our work, see what we did. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to Image, and when I click on it I get Adjustments, and I'm going to go down to Hue and Saturation, and I'm just going to grab this saturation slider and I'm going to slide it over and totally desaturate that photo. Now most people, when they turn things to black and white, that's what they do. They just desaturate it and then they're like, okay, I'm good, you know, and I'll save it and we're all good and fine. And most people would probably say that this photo looks pretty good, because we have some highlights and some whites and light colored things, and we have some dark stuff here, and everyone's like, yeah, it looks great. But to me it doesn't. To me it looks muddy and it just looks gray and gray and not black and white. So in order to kind of spruce this up just a little bit, I'm going to make another copy of this one so that we have a copy of just the desaturated one, so you'll be able to see the difference between the two photos. And after I desaturate a photo, I go back up to Image, Adjustments, and because this one has some really good light colors and dark colors, it won't take much to fix it, in my opinion. So I'm going to come up to Lightness, Brightness and Contrast. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to get my two Brightness and Contrast sliders. I'm going to brighten this up a little bit more. And then I'm going to grab the contrast and I'm going to pull some contrast in there so that I've brightened up the bright spots, especially her skin. That's the part that I'm the most picky about, is when it's things with portraits, I don't like people's skin to look muddy and gray. I like them to look nice and bright. And then pulling in the contrast helps darken the dark parts so that the brightness of the skin looks that much more bright because we've darkened things around her. Then I'm going to hit OK. And pretty much that's pretty good in my opinion. And if I go and hide the layer I just worked on to show you the just desaturated layer, you can kind of see the difference. That's just desaturated, and that's with just some brightness and contrast. Now I don't want to brighten it up so much that I actually lose details in things. Like sometimes you brighten too much, you might actually start to lose detail in the nose and around the mouth and around the eyes and things. You don't want to brighten it up that much. You do not want to lose details. You just want to make things that should be light colored nice and light, and things that should be dark colored nice and dark. And as we've discussed in class, that's known as dynamic range, and you want a good dynamic range. Now, I'm pretty much done with this. I'm happy if you do this to your photos and you kind of get them nice and bright where they need to be bright and dark where they need to be dark. I'm happy with that. And you really don't have to do much more than that. I mean, it is just that simple. It's just that most people will just desaturate and then they're happy, and I'm not happy with that. So, another tip that I will show you if you're working in Photoshop A lot of times people will say, well, my photo was, it's in focus, but for some reason I see photos and they just look just a little bit more crisp than mine. They make mine look blurry almost because they just are so nice and vibrant and crisp. Well, it's pretty simple to fix that, and anytime that I edit, right before I save, when I'm done doing all my other edits, the very last thing that I do is I go up into Filter, and I drop down to Sharpen, and I go and I sharpen my photo just a little bit. I personally like Smart Sharpen. Some people like to use the Unsharp mask, but I like to use Smart Sharpen. It's just me. So you could play around with both of those and see which one you like better. When you do this, at least on my computer, I have found the changes are not super instant. So, actually, let me go make a copy so we can see the difference in the sharpening. So let me go copy that one. I'm going to go sharpen this top layer. So you can kind of see, it's not going to be a huge, huge difference, but it should be enough of a difference that you go, oh yeah, I like that. So once I always make sure that I have the preview button checked so that as I'm working on the big photo, I can actually see it take effect, and I can see what it's going to look like in my photo itself as opposed to looking in this little preview screen. It's kind of hard to tell, if it's going to look good or not. And really all you got to do is just come in here and just add a little bit amount of strength of the sharpening tool, and then the radius is how far out from the middle it's going to affect the photo. So and then, of course, the reduced noise is if there's any kind of noise, it's going to kind of blur that noise down a little bit. You do not want to come in and turn this amount and the radius up really high, because when you do, it will really mess up your photo, and when it takes effect here in a second, you'll see what I'm talking about. There is a such thing as sharpening too much. And when it takes effect like it just did, you could see how it almost gets this cartoony drawn look. And I do not like that. So don't do that to your photos. But just a little bit of sharpening and a little bit of radius. And I'll just hit OK so it can take effect. Let's see and it takes a second to apply the filter. And then we can kind of look between before and after and see if we see a difference. So that's kind of before. If you look in her face, you'll see it take effect. It just kind of sharpens it up just a little bit. If you look in her face, you can kind of see how that's just, it looks like it's in focus, but then when you sharpen it, it's just the details, the edges of things just are a little bit crisper. So that's always a good way to end all of your editing, is sharpening your image before you save it. Then, of course, we can flatten this down by going to Layer, and Flatten Image, and then it'll flatten all those layers down, and then we can go over and we can do a Save As. Like up here, go to File, and do Save As. And a lot of people don't necessarily want to lose and write over their color version. So usually, if I want to keep my color version, I will just go in and add a BW at the end of the file name, so I know that's the black and white version, and I don't overwrite my color version. And then I would save it, but I don't want to save it just yet. I want to go back so I can show you another way to add nice black and white. And this is using the plugin Nik software, the Nik Master Collection, which is this thing here. If you don't have Nik, if you have Photoshop, but you don't have the Nik software, just go and Google Nik Collection. Google offers it, they own it, and they offer it totally for free, which you can't beat free. And I really love the Nik software. I use it quite a bit, the different applications. The one that would be apropos for us to use right now would be the Silver Effects, and this is their black and white application. So this is one way that you can also black and white your photos when it takes effect here. It takes a second, at least on my computer, because my computer is slow. Once it comes in and it takes effect, I'm going to have a bunch of different presets that I can choose from. And there are a bunch. So you just kind of have to figure out which one you like best. And any one of these that you choose, you can always come over here and kind of tweak it with the sliders. So this one has high structure, so it's going to sharpen it up automatically. It's what structure is. But I can come in here, maybe I just don't like, maybe it's not bright enough for me, so I can go brighten it up a little bit. Pull a little more contrast in. So I can get this lovely contrast there. Again, the structure is like sharpening, so it'll sharpen the image even more. I can do a lot of other things. If the shadows are too dark, I can come in with the slider and adjust the shadows, adjust the highlights, things like that. But just for basics, that's all we really have to do, and then hit OK and let it apply. And once it applies, it actually will create a new layer, and all the changes you've made will be created into a new layer, so that if you do not like what the Nik software has done to your photo, you can always just come and throw this away. And I'm going to show you the difference. If I copy the background, go in here, we're just going to go and just do the desaturation thing again, just so you can see the difference. You're not going to see the difference because this one's on top. But if I hide the Nik software layer, you see the difference? See, you have kind of 50 shades of yucky gray. And then you have nice, high dynamic range, good contrast, nice bright whites, and good bright skin tone, and nice dark details, nice shadows, and the tones and the details are nice and crisp and dark like they should be. Again, I didn't lose like the detail, the shadows in her nose and things. I didn't lose details in her face, which I do not want to do that. I don't want to overexpose so that I lose the details that make up her face, make up parts of her body. I don't want to lose the details in her clothes or anything around her. I don't want to overexpose it. I just want to make it brighter. So as you can see, that's the difference. So either way, that's probably the easiest ways I know how to do black and white, is either just doing the image adjustments, desaturating and go in with the contrast and brightness, or if you want to download the Nik collection and use the silver effects, you totally can. And then after we're done with this, all I got to do is, again, go in the layer, flatten the layers, go in and save the JPEG, and I have a lovely black and white JPEG that I can upload for homework. So that's pretty much it. It's just that simple. And if anybody has any questions, go right ahead. You can text me, and I will try to help you out. But I think that that's pretty self-explanatory. So good luck, guys, and I can't wait to see your photos.